I was 19. 19 is the age when you're an adult according to your passport, but still a child according to the contents of your fridge. Money was a rare guest, mostly in the form of small change forgotten in the pockets of winter coats. And one day I realized it was time to look for a job, not a weekend gig, but a real one with a schedule and responsibility. That word, responsibility, seemed as huge as a skyscraper to me back then. I opened a job listings website, job vacancies. My eyes were all over the place. They needed couriers, waiters, call center operators, assistant accountants. I didn't know who I was. What do I want to be? What do I want to be? A question that baffles even adults. I scrolled through pages until I stumbled upon an ad. A small coffee shop near the park was looking for a barista. A barista. No experience required. Training provided. Training provided. And most importantly, it smelled of coffee. I love coffee. I clicked apply. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. I was invited to a job interview. A job interview. I had never been to an interview before. What to wear? What to say? I changed clothes 3 times before settling on something halfway between a student and an office clerk. A white shirt, which I'd ironed for the first time in my life, and jeans without holes. I left the house an hour before the scheduled time. Better to wait on the spot than to be late. To be late was my biggest fear. I arrived half an hour early and stood at the entrance, pretending to study the window display. I was met by the manager. A woman with tired but kind eyes and a short haircut. She introduced herself. Anna. We walked into the back room. It smelled of freshly ground coffee and cleaning solution. I sat down on a chair, trying not to slouch. Back straight, hands on my knees. Anna asked questions. Simple ones. But I stumbled over my words from nerves. Why do you want to work here? Why do you want to work here? Do you have any experience? Do you have any experience? Are you willing to get up at 5 in the morning? Are you willing to get up at 5 in the morning? I answered the last question honestly. I am. Lying at a job interview is a bad idea. A bad idea. Even if you really want to. Anna nodded and started explaining the duties. To take orders. Making drinks. To make drinks. Keeping the workspace clean. To keep the workspace clean. Smiling at customers, even if there's a hurricane inside. I listened and nodded. My head buzzed with new information. But somewhere inside, excitement was brewing. I got the job. On a probation period. 2 weeks. If I manage, I stay. If not, well, it'll be experience. I walked out of the coffee shop on wobbly legs. In my hands were an instruction booklet and a shift schedule. First shift. Tomorrow at 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning. Me, who could barely wake up by 10. But I felt pride. Pride. And terror. Terror and pride. A strange cocktail, but quite invigorating. The alarm clock rang at 5. 5 in the morning is a time when the streets still belong only to street sweepers and birds. I got up and dressed in my uniform. A black T-shirt with a coffee shop logo and an apron. The apron was a bit too big. I tightened the string so hard I could barely breathe. I left the house. The city was gray and quiet. The coffee shop opened at 6, but I had to come early for training. I was greeted by a mentor, a guy named Dima, who had been working here for a year, and moved behind the bar counter with the grace of a dancer. He showed me the espresso machine. An espresso machine. It wasn't a little push-button gadget, but a real beast with levers and hissing pipes. Dima explained how to grind beans. How to tamp the coffee. How to froth milk. A pitcher. The correct angle. I listened, but my hands were shaking. I messed up the first order. The coffee ran over. The milk was overheated. The foam looked like soap suds. I stood there, red as a lobster. But Dima just smiled and said, "Relax. Everyone starts like this. Make another one." And I did. The second was better. The third was almost perfect. By noon, I could make a cappuccino without burning myself. A cappuccino, a latte, an espresso, an espresso. The words were no longer foreign. They became my tools. The team. 5 people worked at the coffee shop. Dima, who became my unofficial older brother. Masha, a student who drew hearts on foam better than anyone in the city. Oleg, a silent giant who hauled heavy bags of beans and fixed electrical sockets. And the manager, Anna, who kept things in order and made us tea during breaks. A break. We'd run off to the back room for 10 minutes, munch on cookies, and complain about difficult customers. Customers. Oh, that's a universe of its own. Regulars came every morning. One man always ordered a double espresso without sugar and read a newspaper. A girl with a dog asked for a cup of warm milk for her pet. A cup, warm milk. Someone was in a hurry, threw money on the counter, and ran off shouting, "Keep the change." Tips. My first tip was a 20 ruble coin. I kept it like a talisman. There were tough days, too. Once, a woman yelled at me because her latte had too much foam. Too much foam sounds like the start of a joke, but back then, I wanted to sink through the floor. I apologized, and made a new drink. She left satisfied, and I understood the customer is not always right, but you always have to smile at them, even through gritted teeth. A smile is our main armor. The probation period flew by unnoticed. I stayed. I was officially hired. To be officially hired. An employment contract. I signed a document with my job title for the first time. A job title. Barista. It sounded proud. I got paid twice a month. My first paycheck was modest, but I felt like a millionaire. I bought flowers for my mom and took my friends out for pizza. Pizza bought with your own money is the most delicious pizza in the world. I worked at the coffee shop for a year and a half. I learned a lot. To wake up early. To work in a team. To handle stress. To communicate with strangers. And most importantly, I understood that work is not just about money. It's about how you grow. To grow. Professional growth. Personal growth. In a year and a half, I grew from a scared student into someone who can fix an espresso machine and calm down an angry customer. Not bad progress. When I was quitting, my colleagues gave me a mug that said, "Best barista." To quit, I wrote a letter of resignation. Worked out my notice period. To work out a notice period. And on the last day, I made myself an espresso as if I were a guest. Anna shook my hand. Dima slapped me on the shoulder. I walked out of the coffee shop, breathing in the familiar smell of coffee and cleaning solution, and moved on. There were other jobs ahead, other cities, other challenges. But that first one stayed with me forever. A first job is like a first kiss. Awkward, scary, but unforgettable. If you're just looking for yours, don't be afraid. Send your CV. Go to interviews. Make mistakes. And memorize every new word. Because the language of work is the language of adult life. And when you say, "I got the job," the world will change. Tested and confirmed.